So I haven't been having as much time to like record and listen to music as I would like to. So I apologize for that. This is going to be kind of a fun one. I actually just recorded a video about the history of pop rap music in the late 80s and early 90s. I hope you watched that. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to be getting to Black Milk and Fat Ray, a really good underground hip hop album. But this is just, I found a little bit of time, a little window on a Saturday afternoon when I can record. So I'm just doing back to back. I got to give a shout out to Justin Hunt and just say this is story number two. Story number two. Okay, so I just want to talk about the Not Like Us Super Bowl, the performance of it, because obviously I've talked a lot about the Super Bowl performance. I've done 2 videos on it. You've watched 1,000 videos on it. I haven't watched all of them, so maybe some people have touched on this before, but now I'm going to touch on it. Didn't like the way that sounded. I want to talk about the slight variation to the song Not Like Us. The song which I made the video about very recently about how that may be the most important rap song of all time. Okay? That kind of hot take that I'm not really known for. But discussing the slight variations of this song and how he took this limitation, which is when you perform at the Super Bowl, you have to do these crazy medleys. Medleys? Not melodies, medleys, where you mix together multiple songs. You might hear my kids downstairs, even though I found a little time to record. Doesn't mean my house doesn't still have 4 kids inside of it all running around, bouncing off the walls like a bunch of free electrons, okay? You have to condense your songs down. You have to condense your performances, and that's what he had to do. And what he did was he turned this shortened version of this song that had just won 5 Grammys, and it turned it into the cherry on top. Turned it onto the capstone. Do you know what a capstone is? In a monument, it's the final stone that you put in. Okay, usually, like if you're making an arc, it's the last one you put in at the very top. And it's like, it represents figuratively an achievement, the highest achievement that one has made. Okay, that's what it's about. And the way that he did it, the way that he took this song and truncated it and changed it and added a little bit to it, made it the perfect capstone. It was the crowning moment of 2 distinct yet integrated goals of the entire performance. One, it worked as a capstone on his commentary on how the expectations placed on black entertainers are a reflection of other systemic and racist phenomena. Okay? That's one goal of his performance. The second goal, of course, was to treat Drake as a part of, a symbol of that systemic oppression and completely annihilate it off the face of the earth. Nuke it from orbit on literally the biggest stage in human history. Okay, with the exception of the moon landing, depending on the numbers, it had just as many views as the moon landing. Okay, so what did he do? How did he do it? Well, he took a song that has 3 verses and turned it into 1 verse with an intro. Okay, so time is of the essence. 13 minutes in, he has a whole vision. He can't do every single song. Okay, now what's interesting is before it was played, Rob Markman, a shout out to Rob Markman, suggested that he just do entirely different verses because there's also the question about whether or not he'll be sued. Okay, but that's not what he did, but it sort of is. It's shorter. It's abridged, but it's also added to. And what he did was this. The first verse and the second verse of the original song, if we are to be honest, if we are to keep it a 1-0-0, are basically the same thing. Okay, the second verse goes on about DeMar DeRozan and the Tupac thing. It's not really necessary. Basically, everything that he's saying, it is necessary, but it's not as essential as the first verse. So the first 2 verses are truncated into the performance of the first verse. But what about that crucial third verse, the colonizer verse? Well, that's what the prelude was about. That is what is so wild. That's what he was able to do by truncating the song and adding like literally 4 lines. He was able to fight the micro battle with Drake and the macro battle against systemic white oppression and unrealistic normalizing expectations on black performers in white spaces, was able to fight both of those and win both of those with this capstone moment. I'm going to go line by line. Number 1, it's a cultural divide. I'm going to get it on the floor. It's a cultural divide. This has been a rap civil war. That's what it's been. It's been a civil war. The people who fight for the culture and the people who fight against it. That's the way that it's phrased. Listen, wars are phrased in different ways in different places. There's some places in the South where they call the American Civil War the War of Northern Aggression. All depends on how you call it, okay? I think if you are on the side of Kendrick, and I'm not going to say I'm biased, I am on the side of Kendrick. That's not bias, that's just a side, okay? That's what it is. It was a battle for the culture. What is hip hop culture? Sorry, I just noticed that top of my head's being cut off. I'm too close to the camera. So this cultural divide is everything here. Either you are like Drake, either you are like them, or you are like us. I'ma get it on the floor. The floor meaning like the dance floor, because he's going to be dancing, he's going to be moving, but also like getting things on the floor, bringing them out to light. That's what this battle did. There was a war going on, a war which hip-hop culture had been losing for a little while, and he is bringing it to light and making the battle more explicit. He is getting it on the floor. And then we have the Greek choir, the Greek chorus. You really about to do it? Okay, which is also very similar to some of the back and forth that was existing on To Pimp a Butterfly. It's a lot like Problem Funkadelic. It's a lot like James Brown. It is call and response. This goes back to Afro-diasporic traditions, okay, of performance, in which you often have one person saying something and then a bunch of people behind him backing up what he's saying. A kind of call and response, which I suppose might actually partially come from the church, but I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. You tell me in the comments if that's what that is. But this kind of back and forth, this is part of the Afro-diasporic tradition, okay? Meaning traditions that come from Africa and manage to survive landing by force into the New World. You really about to do it? And this is building on the previous hint. The last time he was talking to the chorus was about whether or not he was going to play this song, whether or not he was going to do it, but they like to sue. And it builds on that previous hint, and it builds up suspense. And then he delivers the killer line. 40 acres and a mule, this is bigger than the music. Listen, I did not give this its proper due. What he's doing here is everything that he did on the third verse, the best verse of last year. What did he talk about in that third verse last year? He talked about the Reconstruction, how even though the slave trade was ended and slavery was abolished in the United States of America, people who had formerly been enslaved were still being forced to work in suboptimal conditions for less money than they are worth in the Reconstruction. So he doesn't talk about that here. What he does talk about is 40 acres and a mule, which he's giving you a history lesson. He's demanding that you actually look up what this means. Because I just kind of said, oh yeah, that's what was promised to the formerly enslaved people. And then I talked about Spike Lee's movie company being called that. But let's actually dig into it. Do you know who declared 40 acres and a mule? Who declared that that many of the people who had previously been enslaved and who are now freedmen and freedwomen, that they would get 40 acres? Because the mule actually was never promised. The mule was just kind of thrown in there, because how are you going to have all that land and no animals to help you work on it, right? It was Sherman, William Tecumseh Sherman. And if you don't know your world history, your American history, that's okay. Sherman is the guy who helped to win the Civil War by completely destroying Georgia. Georgia. He completely destroyed Georgia. Went from Atlanta inland all the way to Savannah on the coast from November 15th, 1864 to December 21st, 1864. Scorched earth, destroyed everything. Civilians, military, whatever it was, he burned it down to the ground. Okay? Still to this day, a lot of people are bitter about the way that he did this, because he was just like, if you really need to destroy something, you need to really destroy it. What's Kendrick been doing, everybody? This is the subtext here, okay? Kendrick has been Shermaning, okay? He has been treating Drake like the state of Georgia in 1864, and he is not just going after this, or that. He is going after every single neck and stepping on every single neck with his size 7 sneakers, remember? Within a month of Sherman reaching Savannah, Georgia, on January 16th, 1865, less than a month after he had landed, after destroying virtually the entire state of Georgia, punishing it for participating in slavery and helping to end the Civil War by being such an amazingly effective and ruthless destroyer of evil, he released Special Field Order number 15. Now, what was Special Field Order number 15? Well, there was a problem. Great, destroy all the plantations and destroy all the, but then you have a refugee problem because you have a whole bunch of people who used to be enslaved who are now free and following your army. And what are you going to do with these folks? Well, where are they going to go? What are they going to do? How do you deal with this human problem? This problem of too many humans, and they had no agency, they had no education, virtually no education in most cases. They had been deprived of most needs. They'd been treated like literally like enslaved people. So what are you going to do with them? Well, he decides he'll ask them. Sherman asks them. He has someone named Reverend Garrison Fraser. Remember his name. I want you to get out a piece of paper and write Garrison Fraser. Okay? It's Black History Month, everybody. That doesn't just mean listen to the I Have a Dream speech 3 times in a row. That means you got to learn some Black history. Reverend Garrison Fraser was elected by the people, by the refugees, which basically the formerly enslaved people had become refugees of war who had nowhere to go and nothing to do. He represented them. And he said this following quote, "The way we can best take care of ourselves is to have land and turn it and till it by our own labor." He was not asking for anything other than give us land to work on. And so Sherman gave them 400,000 acres divided into 40-acre plots, in particular in the part of Georgia called Sea Islands. There's no mention of mules, but it made sense, and it said that whites were prohibited from taking this land. But there's an important problem with this idea, because it's a good idea and it's true. And a lot of historians have suggested that had this actually gone through, there might not be the great racial class inequality in this country. Because how are you supposed to develop generational wealth if you don't have any land and you don't have any access to land? So at its peak, there was a Freedmen's Bureau, which was in charge by Washington, and they were trying to distribute this land that used to belong to slave owners to people who had worked on it. And then Lincoln is killed. Okay? And Johnson takes over, and the Reconstruction takes another turn. And Johnson, quote, "The Johnson Proclamation required the Bureau to reallocate most of it to its former owners. Everything went back to the status quo." So when we talk about reparations, if we are thinking realistically, the most realistic number that America owes to the descendants of enslaved people, is $14 trillion. Okay? But that's not it. It's not just the $14 trillion that founded our country. It's the generational wealth that was denied. Because property in Sea Islands, property in Georgia is worth something. And it should have been given, and it was given, and it was taken back. 40 acres and a mule, this is more than the music. So let's think about this in the context of what Kendrick is doing. He can't give you the whole, he doesn't have time for let me put you up on game, and they used to run, and they used to do all this. He just says in one line. So Drake ran to Georgia. That was in the 3rd verse. Okay? And so when Kendrick symbolically burns it down, he is symbolically, culturally redistributing the wealth, much like Sherman, the Special Field Order number 15. Okay, thanks to the work with Reverend Garrison Fraser. Okay, that order would have redistributed some of the land and the wealth to the Black Americans who fought for it and made that land profitable and brought so much to this culture. I think what he's doing here is trying to redo the Reconstruction. And we're at this inflection point where maybe Drake is going to win, and the style of rap and the sort of anti-cultural hip-hop that Drake makes might end up winning. Lincoln might get shot, it might go back to Johnson, and those 40 acres, symbolic, cultural acres, okay? Cultural acres that are owed. Okay? Black Americans are owed hip-hop culture. They created it. They tilled the land. They did everything. Okay? Not everything, but almost everything. Okay? That's their land that Kendrick is fighting back for. Cultural redistribution of wealth to the people who deserve it and not allow it to go to the colonizers. You really about to do it? You see what he did? You see how he took that whole verse and just boiled it down to one line? You really about to do it? The choir comes back. Yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake the influence. Trying to rig the game because the referees always rig in favor of the Chiefs. That's just something that they do, and they even did in the first quarter of the game. And then there's, of course, rigging the game of Drake trying to sue to get the song not to be played. And, of course, there's this whole concept of Spotify rigging and whether or not people actually love this song. Then get on it like that. And then Kendrick does the most amazing thing. He, once again, destroys Drake at what Drake does best. Funny little memes. Hey, I'm tripping, I'm sliding, I'm riding through the back like bow. That moment. Are you on TikTok? Have you seen how many TikToks there are of this little additional moment? Kendrick knew it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough to play the song. It's not enough to play it well. It's not enough to get people to download it. It's not enough to make it the #1 song again for multiple weeks in a row after it already been #1 song for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks last year. He had to beat Drake at his own stupid game again by making a meme. And he knew he and Dave Free creating this coordinated motion of one person in front of a back of people is exactly what people want to do on TikTok. I've seen like kids in African villages do this. I have seen old white people in retirement homes doing this. I've seen hundreds of teenagers doing this. I've seen adults. I've seen everybody do this. Everybody imitate this move. And it's totally new. I'm tripping, I'm sliding, I'm riding to the back like bow. It's not anything. It's simple, it's silly, it's goofy, it's nothing, it's not deep, it's not about the Reconstruction, it's not about racism, it's not about systematic this, systematic that, it's nothing. It's just pablum, it's just pop rap goofiness. It's nothing. It's Kendrick doing it because he can. Drake can't make the third verse of Not Like Us. But Kendrick can make Hotline Bling before waking up if he chooses to. And this is what he's doing here, creating this moment. I'm tripping, I'm sliding, I'm riding to the back like bow. And then the way that he dances in a simple, imitatable way is creating the memes. It's as TikTokable as the Tootsie slide. And he knows that everyone is building up and no one knows is he going to say Drake. And when he says say Drake and he pops the smile, you feel that moment, and it's another memeable moment. Meme after meme after meme. The micro battle is won. The macro battle is won. And it's all through this amazing synthesis of this song, which he has truncated by 2/3 and added only 4 lines with a choir and turns it into something that is simultaneously as good as the original and builds on it and creates a capstone and is the final nail in the final coffin for the macro forces that are trying to steal rap music from Black Americans and in the coffin of Drake. So that's cool. Now my baby stopped crying. Hope that didn't distract you too much. And I sure hope this was recording too. Sometimes this microphone does the thing. If you so much as touch this thing, I don't know how Toure records these things. I always end up muting myself. I don't think I did, though. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that. That was fun. Check out my other stuff. I got to get back to normal stuff, but now I got to go hang out with my family. I love hanging out with my family. There's the camera. Wait, where's the camera? It's up there.